Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. This is my second attempt at filming this video. I just really cannot get it together. It's been a long day. The sun hasn't even set and I'm already out of sorts. I don't even know what's happening. I think because as you can see, I look a little disheveled. It's toward the end of the day. I planned for 50-degree weather, as it's been for the past month. It was 72 degrees out today. I've been running around sweating. I'm a little bit greasy. I repowdered and added more blush right before this, but I'm a little sweaty and greasy, as I often am on this channel. I don't know a better way to put it. I got this stain on my shirt, I think in the past hour. I don't even know. It wasn't there a while ago. I don't really know where that came from. And now my hair is bothering, so I'm gonna put it back there. Basically, this is... Okay, I'm resetting. It's happening again. This will be an update for my Pan That palette, or Pan Those palettes really, because I have a seasonal quarterly Pan That palette, but I'm also using the palettes all throughout the year. Anyway, I also have a Pan That Face palette, but the progress on that is extra slow, so I'm just lumping them all together in this video. But I will say, especially this update, this is the first update, this is not going to be an exciting update at all. I can promise you that. So if you click off of this video right now, I promise I will not be mad. I won't be disappointed. I won't be offended. You can go. That's okay. So for everyone who stayed, welcome to the update. It's not going to be very exciting, but I will say, oh, okay, squirrel brain moment before I get to that. This is my candle that I've been burning, okay, here it is, for the past 2 weeks in my videos, and I haven't even introduced it yet. Technically, I already have in one of my videos a while ago last year, but then I put it back in my closet where I keep all my candles. This is the Cozy Blanket candle. This is what will be burning behind me probably until winter is over, but it's a very fitting, very cozy scent. Back to the update. You should watch my introduction if you haven't seen it, or if you just can't remember what I said in that video, because I explained this, why I'm doing this video, and I explain my guidelines for this project extensively in that video, because I ramble. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It will be in the description box or at the end of the video. I'm just gonna get into it. So basically, it's a seasonal Pan That palette where I picked one palette for every season or 3 months, and I'm allowing myself to use all of these, but I'm trying to mainly focus on my palette for that season. The palette for the winter season is my e.l.f. Cosmetics Rose Gold Nude palette. I haven't been tracking uses. I just don't do that unless I have something in for a specific usage goal. But this is, I would say, the palette that has the most use for me, but and I'm wearing it now as well. As far as looks that I've done exclusively with just this palette, I think this is only the second time I've done that since my intro. This was also one of my palettes, my level 5 palette for Project Level Up last year. I clearly did not make much progress. I only hit my usage goal, so I used each shade 5 times when I had this rolled in, and then I think I had used it, no pin left behind, once before that. So at the intro, I think each of these only had 6 uses total, and now it's starting to look like, at least that I've used this palette before, it looks like someone owns this eyeshadow palette. The look that I'm wearing right now is kind of just my go-to look that I do with this palette whenever I want to do something just with this palette. Clearly my mind is still foggy, but the look is, I set my eyeshadow primer with this super light shade, and then I go in with this light medium. On me it's light medium, it barely shows up, I have to build it up a lot, and I put this all over my eye. Then I deepen it up with this deep purple, which is actually pretty pigmented for an e.l.f. palette, and I would say it's the most pigmented shade in this entire palette. I barely really have to tap into it to get this opacity. And then for my shimmers, I use this one, this pink, all over my eye, and then I use this in the inner corner. That's my go-to look. So I've done that one twice this past month, but most of the use has been on this shade right here. I pretty much paired this with my, I'm pretty sure there was also another palette that I was using this shade with, but mainly pretty much every day that I had to use that palette. I'm talking about the level 1 palette that I had in for my project Level Up Light, which was my Dose of Colors Baked Brown. The shade that I was using 10 times was just like a light warm brown, and I would put that all over my eye, and then I'd put this shade just all over my lid, and that's the look that I did 10 times. So except one day I think I used this shade actually. So I've used this shade at least 9 times since you saw it in the introduction. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but at least in this part of like this for you, it's the bottom half of the shade. There is like a lot of wear. I don't know if you could necessarily call it a dip, but you can definitely tell that's where I was focusing my brush for all of those uses. I feel like even though I didn't use this a ton and I don't have any noticeable dips in any of the shades, I still am pretty satisfied with the use I got on this palette. I will say something that I've noticed with this palette is the mattes are really good quality. I mean, I can really only use 2 of them. So these 2 mattes that I use in this look are the only 2 that show up on me. This one, like, it just really doesn't look like anything on my skin. Like, it looks like a cool tone version of my skin. It's basically the same depth. And then this one kind of just like looks like almost a white. So I only use it as like an eyeshadow primer setting shade, and then I just cover it up with other stuff. So these are the only 2 mattes that I can use from this palette, but they are really good quality. I would say as long as I really build this shade up, it's like really nice. It lasts fairly well, I would say. And then this is a really pretty shade. It's not, it can be slightly patchy, but as long as, you know, I blend it very well, it's not super patchy, and a lot of dark purples can be, and it's also decently pigmented, but you can blend it out fairly easily. So I really do like those 2 mattes specifically, but the shimmers just, they don't last very well. Or I should say metallics, because they're like, they have a bit of shimmer in it, but they're mostly metallics. But the 4 shades that I would consider to have that formula in this palette are this one that I use for the inner corner, this one that I use all over my lid, this gold shade that I said I was pairing with that brown, and then this rose gold shade. I would say that this like medium purple and this light pink are satins in my opinion, but those 4 metallics, they go on, they're very pretty. They're not super punchy, which I wouldn't expect from, like, I mean, I would want that from an indie palette that I had to pay like 50-60 bucks for. I'm not necessarily expecting a super bold, impactful metallic or shimmer from a drugstore palette, but the amount of like shimmer and shine that I do get from these fades throughout the day, to the point where by the end of the day, I do work long hours. I'll say like I can easily be in the lab for 12 hours straight, but considering I'm using like an eyeshadow primer and then a glitter primer underneath these metallics, they do fade pretty drastically by the end of the day, to the point where it looks like I put just like a satin shadow all over my eye instead of a shimmer or a metallic. They kind of just become very lackluster by the end of the day. So yeah, those shades are definitely not my favorite from this palette. That is something that I've discovered using this palette on a fairly regular basis. So I would say by the end of this year, because I am planning on potentially decluttering all of these palettes in this project, or at least the eyeshadow palettes, at the end of the year, I probably won't be too heartbroken over this one. Even if I don't have a bunch of pans on it, I will be ready to get rid of it. For now, it's still fine to use, especially because I don't really care what my makeup looks like too much at the end of the workday, because usually the rest of my makeup doesn't look that great either. So yeah, it's fine to use for now, but those are just my thoughts on this palette. Next, I'll talk about what is supposed to be like my focus palette for next quarter. It's the Natasha Denona Mini Star, and I'm not gonna talk about Natasha Denona too much. I'm not gonna rant about the brand too much in this video. I've already been rambling enough. But basically, this palette is just so to me. I also feel like I'd have a better shot at using this once I do start to get a tiny bit of a tan, which will not be now in the dead of winter. I did use this a few times. Mainly it was for, or actually exclusively, it was for these two shades. So I used this one a few times just to set my eyeshadow primer, but this is, at least right now, while I'm as pale as I will ever be throughout the year, this is just slightly too dark to be a lid setting shade for me. And then I used this metallic pink a few times as an inner corner highlight, but again, it's just a tiny bit too dark to work for that purpose right now. So I'll probably put this one away until its season arrives in a few months. Then I have my ABH Norvina, which is my like summer or Q3 palette, and I only used this once, but it was for that one look that I was talking about in my introduction, which again, you should watch that video if you haven't seen it. But basically, my favorite look to do with this palette is kind of boring. It's like literally just with the neutrals, but I like to put volatile just all over my eye and then dazzling on my lid, and it is so pretty, especially for like a really pretty work look, which is what I used it for. I did that look once, and I don't know if you can, oh, I should show you the mini star as well. I don't think you'll really be able to see a difference, especially on camera. I can tell though that like I do have a little bit more disturbance in those pans than I did before, but it's nothing really crazy. I'll probably also put this palette away for now just because I don't really need to be using it. I just like I just really wanted to do that look for some reason, and I did it. Also, here's the Natasha Denona palette. I don't know if you can see that tiny dip that's forming in the shade, and then I do have like, you can't really see it, but I can see brush marks in that kind of like lid setting shade. Finally, the last palette, which is supposed to be my fall palette, is my Pat McGrath Quint. This is the Eye Ecstasy Sublime palette. I didn't use this at all. Now I'll move on to my Pan That Face palette, which is just my Franken palette. It looks almost the exact same, other than brush marks and like a little bit of disturbance in the palette, which you probably can't even see on camera. I feel like the light is really washing it out. Okay, I tried to lower the light. Oop. I tried to lower the light a tiny bit, but you still can't really see much of anything. So yeah, this, like I said, this update is not very exciting. I have used this most days that I do my makeup, but I just have to be very light-handed with everything. There are some days where I've only used this palette for my cheek products, like on days when I was just trying to fly out the door. I didn't use any of my cream products, so this is like, I was able to use more product from these pans like in this palette, but most days I was first going in with my cream cheek products that are in my year-long project pan, and then I wouldn't have to use as much of this on top because like I already had something there. So I feel like you're probably not really going to see much progress until maybe halfway through the year. Like I'm sure hopefully by next update I'll start forming some dips in some of these shades, especially this one right here. This is my favorite blush from this palette. It's what I'm wearing on my cheeks now. I'm actually only wearing this palette right now. I specifically did not wear the cream cheek products today because I wanted to like show you what these shades look like. So I'm wearing the bronzer, the contour, and this blush, but this is just going to go very slowly. I even said in my introduction, my goal isn't actually to finish any of these. It's really just to hit pan on as many of these shades as I can by the end of the year. So yeah, that's the update on this. But I will say, okay, this shade here, it probably just looks like an empty pan to you because it's so light. It's an iridescent highlighter. It's actually a yellow highlighter. This is so pretty, but I never like even once this past month. I actually used it as a highlighter on my face. I did use it on my inner corner a few times. I think it is so pretty that way. But I do already have this pressed. This is like repressed from a highlighter palette. I already have this pressed into little eyeshadow pans, so I'm not going to declutter it now because I think it is really handy to just have it already in my face palette and be able to open it up when I'm doing my makeup if I do want a yellow inner corner highlight. And pretty much every time I do a warm tone look, at least like when I'm doing my makeup for work, this will be the highlight that I'll be using. So I'm going to keep it in here for now, but probably at the end of the year I'm just gonna declutter this pan because like I technically could use it as a highlight, and I have before, but I just like almost never am reaching for this one over my my Essence highlight when I want like a warm, more yellow toned highlight. I pretty much always go for that one. One other thing that I wanted to mention is this blush, the Franken blush. I don't know if you can tell, but I feel like, so basically I Franken this from like a bronzer and a blush. I ended up having to repress this twice when I first like depotted and Franken them together because some of the pigment from the blush started leaching out into this kind of like ink, and it just formed a layer of like super bright pink on top of the blush. And I had to kind of like soak it all up on a paper towel and then repress it again. But I feel like some of it ended up staying on the surface because if you can see, like there are parts of it that are very, very pink, and then there are parts that look kind of more nude. So I'm wondering if there was like kind of an unintentional bright pink overspray on this blush. I'll just have to like swirl my brush around the entire surface just to see if I can wear away any more of the pink, because I don't know, that's just kind of weird to me. That's all I have for you though. Again, like I told you, it wasn't going to be anything exciting. I was even kind of boring myself talking about these products, and they were my own thoughts. So yeah, so sorry about this. I promise I'm really going to try to focus on all of these. Well, I will at least specifically focus on my seasonal Pan That palette and my Pan That face palette for next time, so that I can have like something interesting to tell you about. Like maybe, I'm definitely not going to be hitting any pans, but maybe I can have some like really good dips in some of these shades. I'm still planning on, if you've seen my Project Level Up light update, I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't, but I do have plans to still combine this with the palette that I rolled in. I guess I just did spoil that a little bit, but yeah, hopefully I'll have like the beginnings of a dip in that shade, and then we'll see what ends up happening with that blush from this palette. That's all I have for you for this video. My next video hopefully will be my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 update, and then I'll be done with Project Pan updates for February. It's been crazy. This past week I was filming all week before work. I'm exhausted. Anyway, I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.